Good morning, Cabronials. It is a beautiful day in Brooklyn, New York. I'm still stuck inside my apartment on day 6 of quarantine, but at least the sun is shining through the windows and I'm getting some good sunlight. So that's definitely keeping my spirits up. I also have some very good news on the work I've done over the past day to figure out how to deal with all of my bill payments over the next few weeks, as my industry is still completely shut down and I have no idea when I'm going to be able to get back to work. So we'll jump into that in just a second. But if this is your first time here, my name is John Fredrickson. I'm a photographer based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm going to be making videos every day of this quarantine on how to deal with this pandemic from the perspective of creators and independent artists and contractors who will not be getting paid during this crisis and have to figure out how to get through the crisis stronger and healthier on the other side. So glad that you're joining us here. If you have any questions about how to deal with this crisis from your perspective, I would love to hear from you. Please take a minute to reach out to me on any of my social media channels listed below or at my blog, creatorsunite.org. So yesterday, I made a video going over what the current state of the situation is with the coronavirus in Europe as well as the United States. Obviously, here in New York City, we are experiencing an extreme outbreak of the virus. The governor of New York and also California and Illinois and Connecticut, I think, have ordered all citizens to stay inside, all non-essential workers to stay home. Don't think they've made it clear yet how long that's going to be. But basically, if you aren't taking this quarantine seriously, please stay inside. Do not go out of your house unless you need to get groceries or medical supplies. If you're feeling symptoms, please stay at home. There's no need to get tested. The only reason to go to the hospital is if you are actually so sick that you can't take care of yourself. If you have a fever above 103, if you feel that you're getting fluid buildup in your lungs, those are really the only two reasons to go and seek treatment, because even if you test positive, the only thing they're going to do is tell you to go home and wait this thing out and quarantine yourself from other people. So you should already be doing that. We should all be acting as if we have the virus for at least, I'm guessing, the next 2 weeks. We really don't know. But the sooner we can go into full lockdown, the sooner we can get the number of active cases to start going down rather than up, the better off we will all be. So anyway, I wanted to jump into the good news for today because I know a lot of people are feeling a little overwhelmed with this whole situation. I certainly have been. It can be very depressing getting stuck in your apartment for days, not knowing when you're going to be able to work again, not knowing how you're going to be able to pay your bills. So I made a list of 7 questions that I'm going to try to be answering over the next few days. And yesterday, I made it a goal for myself to figure out what to do about all my bill payments that are going to be coming up over the course of the next month. So my bills basically amount to my cell phone, my Adobe payment, the rent on my studio, my photography studio. Fortunately, I am not going to be paying rent on this apartment at the end of the month because I will be moving out. But I still have to figure out how I'm going to handle that. Then, of course, credit cards. So I tried calling all my credit cards first, and I sat on hold for an hour at each one, wasn't able to get in touch with anyone there. The problem is that all the people who work for these companies are also being told to stay home. So what I did end up doing, even though I wasn't able to get in touch with my credit cards, was to set all of the payments on my cards to the minimum due, just to make sure that I'm keeping my cash flow positive over the next few weeks, because I don't know how long this quarantine is going to last. Obviously, normally you want to be paying as much as you can in your credit cards and not be holding debt, but right now it's better to hold the debt and keep your cash flow high. So I put all my credit cards onto minimum payment. I haven't been able to get in touch with my photo studio to find out if I can defer payments on that until I'm able to get back to work, because obviously I can't even be in the studio while we're on lockdown. Although maybe at the end of the month, I may end up having to go and do these videos from the studio. So we'll see if that's possible at the end of the month. And then the other accounts that I had were my cell phone bill with AT&T and my Adobe payment. It's about $60 a month for a full Adobe suite to be able to use Photoshop, Lightroom, Premiere Pro, all the apps that I use to make these videos and to do my photography work. Adobe was amazing. Turns out you don't even have to call them. Just go online to your Adobe account and go to cancel your account. And as you get towards the end of the cancellation process, before you confirm it, they offer you 60 days free. So you essentially get 2 months of free credit, and they extend the date from when you'll have to pay your bill next up 2 months. So you don't have to cancel your account. You end up keeping your account. You get full access to everything that Adobe has to offer, and you basically get 2 free months where you don't have to worry about paying your bill. So that's fantastic. Adobe is amazing. They're keeping creators alive, essentially, enabling creators to continue doing their work during this troubling time, even if they're not making any money. So take advantage of Adobe's 2 free months. Keep doing your creative work. And the next one that I had on my list was QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks for all my accounting, to be able to send invoices to clients, to be able to make sure that I'm paying my taxes on time. And I have not been able to get in touch with them. They have a Monday through Friday customer support, and I wasn't able to get in touch with them yesterday, and today's Saturday, so that's going to have to wait till Monday. I sent them an email, so we'll see what they say. So that basically means that I got all of my bills either removed or put on hold or put on minimum payments so that I can keep my cash flow as positive as possible for as long as possible until I can figure out what my next step is going to be in terms of work. So if you're a creator and you're out of work for the foreseeable future, I would recommend following these same steps. First, set all your credit card payments to minimum payment. Start by canceling your Adobe account, which won't cancel. It'll give you 2 free months. Contact any other companies that you have monthly bills with. Squarespace is another one, which I forgot. I have to add that to this list. I need to email Squarespace and figure out if I can put those payments on hold, because I have a little problem with starting new projects and starting new websites, and each one of those $16 a month payments for their basic website plan starts to add up. So that's another one I should contact and see if I can put that on hold. So anyway, there is light at the end of the tunnel. If you find that you are in financial stress, most of these companies, from what I can tell, are going to be willing to work with you. Contact your landlord. Let them know that you may have to delay rent payments until you're able to get back to work. At least in New York, I believe, they have made it illegal. It might even be countrywide in the United States. They made it illegal to evict people. So most landlords are going to work with you. Nobody's going to be kicking you out of your apartment. But at the same time, it's very unlikely that they are going to allow you to just completely walk away from those rent payments. So you are going to have to figure out how to pay them back on the other side. My cell phone bill, AT&T, called them up. They actually answered right away. Somehow they have enough customer support to be able to handle this. And they basically said that while they can't waive payments during this time, I can turn off my auto pay and not pay my bill up until May 13th. And they promised not to apply any late payments or terminate my account before May 13th. So I basically have until May 13th to figure out whether or not I want to continue making those payments to AT&T, or if I have to go completely radio silent and lose my cell phone. If the quarantine is still continuing at that point, maybe that's something I have to do. So we'll see. But basically the point is, contact any companies that you have bills with, set your credit cards to minimum payment, and you should be able to get your monthly bill payments down to as small a number as possible to enable yourself to push your cash flow out as far as possible. So yeah, that's a little bit of good news to start the day. Why don't we jump into the rest of the news? Let's see what's going on out in the world. 75 million Americans told to stay home as testing reveals more coronavirus cases. More than a fifth of Americans were under orders Saturday to stay home as U.S. health officials issued stark warnings about the spread of the coronavirus. About 75 million residents of Connecticut, Illinois, New York, and California have been directed to sequester with only essential workers allowed away from home. The extreme measure is necessary to avoid the loss of potentially tens of thousands of lives, says Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom said that police will not be regulating the statewide order. That is a big question that I've had. Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont said residents of his state could be fined for choosing to ignore the directions. If you look at the quarantine in China, China was able to essentially stop the spread of the virus with a quarantine implemented beginning on January 23rd. For another 3 weeks after implementing the quarantine, you continued to see a rise in new cases because of the delay between cases that had already been spread versus cases that hadn't been confirmed yet. So it took them 3 weeks to stop the number of new cases from continuing to rise. But because of their strict quarantine measures in China, they had their police force on the ground enforcing that nobody left their apartments. And if they did, if they were essential workers, that they were all wearing masks, that everybody's wearing gloves. And in China, they actually were able to stop the spread of this thing. They have now brought the number of active cases down into the low thousands from a high of 58,000. Whereas you look at a country like Italy implemented a quarantine 11 days ago, and they have not seen any decline in their daily growth rate. So if we look back on March 9th, they had 9,000 active cases. They were growing at a rate of 24% new cases every day. Over the course of the next week, they continued at about 20%. And then the second week, they've started to see a decline into maybe 13 to 15% new cases a day. The problem is it's not declining any further. So I don't know if we need to wait to see 3 weeks to see if the quarantine in Italy is having effect. My gut suspicion is that they're not being as militant about their quarantine. I did read an article recently, and I don't have it in front of me, where basically the journalist was quoting a Chinese health official who went to Italy to help them with their quarantine and was basically saying that they were not doing what they needed to do to make the quarantine effective. So it still remains to be seen if the quarantine in Italy is going to be effective. They are not currently slowing down the growth. They're sitting at about 15% new cases every day. They added on 6,500 new cases today, and that's 14% new cases. So Italy is not looking good. They're also starting to see now about 900 deaths a day. Their death rate now is at about 9%, which is the worst death rate I think that they're seeing anywhere. So what we need to take away from Italy is that we have to take this quarantine seriously. We can't be walking around continuing to spread the virus, because when the number of cases gets so large that the hospitals can't keep up with the critically sick, the fatality rate goes up from 1% to 7% in Iran to 9% in Italy, in two places where they have not been able to keep up with the spread of this virus. And New York is well on its way to being overwhelmed. We're already starting to hear reports from in the hospitals in New York about how the doctors are not able to keep up with the influx of critically ill patients. So please take this quarantine seriously. If you're in New York City, stay home. Do not leave your apartment. There's no reason to be interacting with other people and touching other surfaces that other people are touching. Doorknobs, buttons to open doors, and door handles. All of these things, you're brushing up against it with your clothes, you're bringing the virus into your apartment. You have to assume that you have the virus and you're spreading it to other people, and you have to assume that everyone around you has it. It doesn't matter whether you've tested positive or not. So the numbers in New York are even worse than Italy in terms of growth rate. The past 3 days, we've had 74% growth on Tuesday, 83% on Wednesday, 85% on Thursday, and then finally dropping back down to 50% on Friday. But still, we're adding 2,500 to 3,000 new cases a day. Today, we've already added 3,000 new cases, and the day isn't even halfway over. So we're looking at a continued growth rate of 50 to 70% in New York City. If we continue at that rate, you guys need to understand how serious this is, how big these numbers get when you keep applying 50% growth rate to them every day. We're going to go from 11,675 cases as of right now to 19,000 tomorrow, 31,000 on Monday, 50,000 on Tuesday, and almost 80,000 on Wednesday. That's following a growth rate of the average of the past 5 days. Now, there may be one silver lining in New York. We talked about this yesterday. I just spoke with my sister who works in a hospital in Manhattan, and she said that there has been a big change in the way that they're doing the testing. So it may be that they're doing a lot more testing, and that these cases were already there and we're just now starting to recognize them, and it's not actually a huge growth. So let's hope that that growth rate will continue to go back down. But if today is any indication, we're already at 30% growth rate today and the day is only halfway over. It doesn't look like that's slowing down. So I would say expect to have 100,000 cases in New York by the end of next week, conservatively, probably even by Thursday next week. So basically take this quarantine seriously. Now, we're all creators, right? We're stuck at home in the middle of the biggest global health pandemic that our generation will ever see, that our parents' generation ever saw. And we're also stuck in the middle of the biggest economic collapse that anyone has seen in generations. So we have to take this seriously, but we also don't want to get overwhelmed. So what we need to do is we need to find ways to step away from the news, step away from the numbers. Yes, take it seriously. Yes, quarantine ourselves, but we have to find ways to be productive and healthy and mentally fit in the middle of this crisis. So while it is totally fine to binge Netflix, to catch up on TV shows that you haven't had time to catch up on, to maybe not be eating the most healthy, maybe drinking more than we usually do. These are all things that are an okay response in the short term. But we have to get ready for this quarantine and this economic collapse to last longer than those daily habits would enable us to stay healthy. So we need to find a way to get into a healthy rhythm where we can start being productive during this time, take advantage of the time that we have off from paid work to do the work that we need to do to develop our skill sets, develop our brands, develop our careers, so that when things start to pick up again on the other side, we are well placed and ready to hit the ground running. So let's jump back over to my blog, Creators Unite, and let's look back at my Creator's Guide to Surviving the Pandemic. So we did an article on how serious is this pandemic really. I think we've covered that in detail, maybe a little bit too much. How long until we can start to see our jobs coming back? Nobody knows. It's going to be weeks. It could be months. We have to be ready for the worst case scenario there. And that means doing the work we need to do in our homes now to position ourselves when we do come out on the other side. Are there any new job opportunities that might pop up during the crisis to help us get through to the other side? I've been doing research on this. It sounds like grocery stores are hiring. It sounds like Amazon is hiring. I looked online on the Amazon website, and the closest warehouse jobs I could find to New York City were in New Jersey. So that doesn't really help because nobody wants to be commuting that far in the middle of a crisis. There are Amazon delivery jobs that are hiring in the Bronx and in Queens. So if you live close to those areas and you're able to get to those places, that might be something worth looking into if you're willing to brave the virus in order to, keep yourself cash flow positive. And I believe also Whole Foods is hiring. You can apply through their website. I didn't look at Trader Joe's or any of the other grocery stores. It might even be possible to walk into your local grocery store and ask if they're hiring and see if you can pick up a few shifts just to get a little bit of extra cash. But it seems like those are the three areas where jobs may still be available. So if you really are in a dire financial situation, that would be something I would look into. But again, if you can avoid it, if you can weather this thing out, if you can keep your bills low, your expenses low, and your cash flow positive, I would highly recommend just trying to sit tight for at least another week or two to give our government time to catch up to the growth curve of this virus and try to get it going back the other direction before we start trying to jump back out into the economy. What do we do about our bills and rent payments? I think we've covered that today. How do we stay strong, healthy, and sane in isolation? This is a great question. I think that's going to be my next video. I need to spend a lot more time thinking about that. I need to get myself into that strong and healthy and mentally fit position in order to be able to really be able to stay on top of A, doing these videos, B, doing the work I need to do to grow my photography business in the downturn. So I'm going to be working on that over the next couple of days and hopefully making a video on that tomorrow. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you guys are doing to stay physically and mentally fit in this tough time. So please drop me a message, leave me a comment, let me know what you guys are doing. And then what should I do if I start getting coronavirus symptoms? That is another video I need to make in more detail, but I think I've already covered that here today. What can I do to get ready for a rebounding economy on the other side? That's going to be another really solid video, I think, in the next week on figuring out, what are the things we need to be doing every day to position ourselves well for the economy on the other side. I'm starting to lose my voice here. I've heard that maybe upper respiratory tract issues can be a sign, but it doesn't feel like what I expected it to feel like. It just feels like a dry throat. Oh, that is actually what they said it would feel like. So who knows? I'm still sitting at 98.5 on the temperature, so I don't think I'm getting sick if I do have the virus already. I don't seem to be feeling it, still feeling healthy. So anyway, let me know how you guys are dealing with quarantine in your area, what part of the country you're watching this from. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying inside. I hope you're staying healthy. And let's work together to figure out how to get through this crisis and let's help each other. So reach out to me and let me know what's going on. I look forward to hearing from you. Stay safe.